Hello, my name is Wildstag, and today I will be reviewing this book, Nature Noir. Oh, there you go. It's by Jordan Fisher Smith. I found it at a place called Cortez Books. This is the bookmark I got from it. It was an interesting bookstore, just like a small, uh, very full bookstore. And I went there in 2018 while working at a summer camp where there were 12 teenagers and 4 staff. Why I remember it is because while we were there, we met a man who had gone to that summer camp in the late 60s, early 70s, and he recognized us because of the logo on the side of the van. And he was so eager to share his experience with the kids. It was a nice moment to just sit and talk to him. I've digressed, but this book, I remember buying it because I have some strong memories attached to it. It holds a special place in my heart. This book, the content of it was good. I think I finished it within the first week of owning it. I reread it that summer. I think I last reread it back in 2019, but it's been a few years since then, but I still think of it as a really good book that I would come back to, and I keep it because of the attachment to it. It's interesting. I bought this book for $7. When you looked at it a couple minutes ago, it was in pretty good condition. When I found it, no cover damage. No one had written in it. The original price, new, was $14. It has the nature and adventure tags on it. The book is about Jordan Fisher Smith's time working at a park, the Auburn State Recreation Area. He was a park ranger for California. It was supposed to be for the Auburn Dam, would fill in Auburn Lake. And I think this is on the American River. Back in the 60s, when it was first being proposed, the U.S. was in a big push. The Bureau of Reclamation was in a huge push to dam up as many rivers as they could to create recreation areas for them. It is around the time that the Auburn Dam was first proposed that the Glen Canyon Dam went up. A couple other major dams were being built in the 60s, especially in the West. And he actually talks about that. So one of the chapters here, Rocks and Bones, goes into the geology, hydrology, the seismology of dams and the history of the dam itself. I'm going to read now from a few paragraphs of it, and to give you a good sense for the guy's writing style, his voice. Working in the canyons that would be flooded by the Auburn Dam, I couldn't help but become a student of it, in the same way a ranger at a Civil War battlefield can recite the minutiae of Pickett's charge or the Bloody Road. Soon, I knew the story of the dam's political advances and geological defeats, the campaigns to rally its supporters and turn the tide on its critics, and the technical details of what had been done so far in the construction site, which we were required to patrol once a day so the curious wouldn't impale themselves on a piece of rebar or get sucked into the diversion tunnel and drowned. And wherever we went, people asked us questions about the dam. After World War II, dam know-how was a key component of United States foreign aid, and Bureau of Reclamation engineers regularly functioned as overseas advisors to developing nations. By the 1960s, big dams were going up all over the world. One of them, the Kariba in Africa, was completed in 1961. At that time, geologists considered the region along the border between Rhodesia and Zambia seismically stable. But as Kariba filled, the area was shaken by a series of earthquakes, which increased in severity to a particularly strong set of shocks in 1963, just as the dam reached capacity. Similar patterns were noted at a French dam in 1963 and a Swiss one in 1965. And by January 1972, the National Academy of Sciences and the National Academy of Engineering released a joint study stating that under certain conditions, large reservoirs had a potential to cause earthquakes as a result of the immense pressures they exerted on what were now understood as discrete portions of the Earth's movable crust, and some geologists believed, by injecting the faults with water under pressure. There were a lot of other really interesting stories in this book. One of his co-workers discovered that the first park ranger ever was a park ranger for one of the sequoia forests. It was at Yosemite, actually. I guess one of his co-workers had taken it upon himself to just find things that were didn't have a home around the park, but were public property, and they would disappear, and then he would have a new driveway, a new garden bed, this kind of thing. It was because the Auburn Dam was in a perpetual state of limbo. The land was in a perpetual state of limbo, and the Rangers kind of saw it as this eventually their park was going to be gone, and so a gravel embankment would be 200 feet underwater. Well, might as well save it and use that gravel somewhere else, because no one's going to be able to appreciate it when it's 200 feet deep. And he talks about it here. Below the dam's waterline, each of us was left to work out his salvation in his own way, and one of Metcalf's ways was to keep an inventory of everything he might be able to salvage from the place before it went underwater. At one location where the Bureau had burned a former resident's house, Metcalf would note a tumble-down chimney. Later, the bricks would disappear, and a few weeks after that, they'd reappear in a decorative path and a little brick wall around a flower bed at his home. Elsewhere in our canyons, he'd come upon a pile of large planks, the remains of a former resident's barn. Sometime later, they'd disappear. Sometime after that, raised beds in his garden where he grew strawberries would be surrounded by neat plank boxes. Metcalf kept notes on these sorts of resources in a notebook in the breast pocket of his uniform. It was legendary. One ranger claimed to have inspected it one night when Metcalf went home, leaving his uniform shirt draped over a chair. According to that ranger, it contained entries like firewood, large fallen oak limb, windy point, approximately 1/4 cord. And so it did not escape notice when Metcalf began taking a 5-gallon plastic bucket with him when he drove away from our station each morning. Each evening when he returned, he'd carry the bucket, now obviously heavy, from his government jimmy to his own pickup. The next morning, the empty bucket went back in his jimmy before he went on patrol. Eventually, it was learned that Metcalf had graveled his whole driveway, one bucket at a time, from an abandoned gravel quarry 500 feet beneath the dam's waterline. Even deeper than I had just mentioned a few minutes ago. And, it's just, they're having a laugh about it. It's, just one of the things they do at work. And one of these co-workers, like I said, he got interested in the history of park rangers as a whole. And in the author's note at the end of the chapter, it indicates that his research, Finch's research, led him to the idea of celebrating the 125th anniversary of Galen Clark's appointment as guardian of Yosemite. In 1991, year-long observances of the 125th anniversary of the California Rangers culminated in a conference at the state's oldest remaining nature park, Big Basin Redwoods, Yosemite long having since become a federal park. And he designed a special commemorative badge for the occasion and got it approved by the department. and he self-published a history of California state park rangers. He says everyone in the park bought one. Along with the anniversary celebration, the book helped us see ourselves as part of something larger and lasting. Still, none of us who worked with Finch ever let on how proud of him we were. It wasn't our way. A lot of it, this book is inspiring. As someone who always wanted to work as a ranger and never did, I still could, but it's nice reading his thoughts, reading his trials and tribulations. And in a way, it's bittersweet because in the ending, it turns out that he was one of the first people in California to come down with Lyme disease, bitten by a tick while working. And one of the symptoms of Lyme disease long term is memory lapses. And that possibility of effectively blacking out for a bit made it so that he couldn't drive a state vehicle. It's sad to see that this person who had such great adventures ended up in that kind of way, but it's funny that he had those adventures and he's looking back at them so fondly. This book, I said it at the beginning, I read it in like a week. It's 200 pages, just a bit more than that. When I bought it, it was in good condition. I kept it in good condition. I bought it for $7. New, it's $13.95. I think I paid, good money for this, and I'm glad that for $7 I have such strong memories, both of a book and of time at a summer camp. I think you'd like it if you like memoirs, if you like reading about history, about nature. This is the book for you. If you find it at a used bookstore, I'd suggest buying it. I liked the $7 I paid for it. My name is Wildstag. Thank you for listening to another used book review.